I'm just truly blessed to be here today. I'm honored to be here with you today. I truly do believe that this is where I'm supposed to be, right here, right now. And that's for you all, that's for me, but that's mostly for God. So I am truly blessed to be here. Amazing songs this morning. Taking what's broken and making it whole again. I mean, that just fits my recovery and my story. But it's not just whole. It's better than whole. It's like beyond what you were before when you're broken and you're fixed in that process. And during that process of being fixed, I truly do believe that you find who you are. You find your purpose in life, God's purpose for you in life. And that's a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to take you through my journey of losing who I was and then finding who I was again through the Lord. But I like to start that off with a little short video for you. I heard the boom, and as soon as I heard the boom, I was on fire. There's no time to react other than get out. The hatch above me was open, thank God, because if it wasn't, I would have never found the lever to get out.
Keep your head up, keep your back straight. Good to go. So now that you've seen a little bit of the beginning of what I went through, the next thing I need to tell you is that was the best thing that ever happened to me. What you saw in that video was the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, a lot of things happened in that video. I was walking for the first time in that video. I was going through strength training in the end of that video. A lot of good things happened, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the best thing that ever happened to me was right in the beginning, when that vehicle was hit with that explosion. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, right now, right here, right now, that makes no sense at all. But it will. By the end of this will make sense. And maybe you will even start to question the things in your life that you said, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Or maybe it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And now you're thinking, oh man, these amazing things that I have in my life today wouldn't be here if that struggle didn't happen. That thing that I've looked at it as negative my entire life. But I've actually found out who I am through it. Maybe you'll change how you're looking at that thing. Maybe you will change your perspective. So that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Now I'm going to take you through my journey. And I like to start my journey right here with a picture of my mom and I. And I am the one in the uniform, if you don't know which one is which. And that is my mother standing next to me, my beautiful mother standing next to me. That's a proud day for me. Like, I went to high school, and I didn't do so well in high school. And when I graduated, I really didn't do well again. And I just had this trend going on, and I needed to make a change in my life, and the Army was that change. But here is basic training graduation, like a proud day for me. I finally had it all figured out. I did. I was going to serve for 4 years in the military. And when I got out of the military, I was going to go to college for 1 year. Then after that, I was going to be a state trooper for 20 years, and then I would retire. That was the plan. That was my plan. Those were my goals. A lot of times we live by our plan and our goals when God has his own plan and own goals for us. And he's putting them in front of us. A lot of times we're just not looking at them the right way. Our perspective isn't right. We're not hearing him the way we should be hearing him. But at this point, I didn't know that. I thought this was the plan. This is what was going to be. And obviously that's not what was going to be, because my life was changed. Truly, my plans and my goals, they were blown up on this day, September 1st, 2006, when I was a soldier in the United States Army, and I was 9 months into a deployment in Iraq. And I was on a patrol on a road I had been on many times before in a vehicle called a Bradley. Now, for those of you that don't know what a Bradley is, now you do. That is a Bradley. It's basically a small tank. Well, that day that I was on that patrol, it was a little different than every other day, because this day somebody had actually buried an IED underneath the road. IED stands for improvised explosive device. It's a homemade bomb. Well, my Bradley ran over that bomb, and the bomb exploded, and the explosion went through the bottom of my vehicle up into the turret where I was sitting. But also in the turret where I was sitting is where we have our fuel tank, and it hit the fuel tank. And this is an actual picture of my Bradley after it had burned for many, many hours. Now you can see from that picture before, the top of the vehicle is the turret. That's the turret. That's the part of the vehicle that I was in. And you can see in the next picture, there is no turret. It had melted into the vehicle. So as soon as that Bradley was on fire, so was I. And I knew the first thing that I had to do if I had any chance to survive was I had to get out of the vehicle. Like, obviously, stop, drop, and roll comes into play at some point, but there's a step to these processes, and the first part of that process was get out of the vehicle. Now, every day when I climbed into the Bradley, I would climb up to the very top of the turret, and I would reach down, and I would pull open a hatch cover. And once that hatch cover was open, I would climb down inside. And then once inside, I would reach up, close that hatch cover behind me. That's how we were supposed to get into the vehicle every single day. We were supposed to keep those hatch covers closed just in case we got hit with any kind of chemicals attack. If we got hit with a chemical attack and all of the hatches were closed, the chemicals couldn't get into the vehicle. That's why we closed them. But that day that I climbed inside, I actually did not close that hatch cover behind me. Thank God. Because if I had, there is no way, with the chaos of that moment, with all that smoke and all that fire, there's no way I would have found that little lever that was above my head that I would have had to hit to open up that cover, which means I wouldn't have gotten it open, which obviously also means I wouldn't have gotten out of the vehicle, which obviously also means that I wouldn't be standing here with you today. So thank God I left that hatch above me open, and I was able to climb to the top. Now, once I got to the top, the next thing I knew I had to do was I had to get to the ground. But there were two big problems with that. And the first problem was the fact that it's a long ways down. So from the top of the turret to the ground is actually 10 feet. 10 feet is pretty easy to imagine because that's the same height as the rim on a basketball hoop. And if you can imagine yourself standing on the rim of a basketball hoop, something 10 feet tall, and looking down, say you're 6 feet tall, you're looking 16 feet to the ground. Long ways down. Big problem. Much bigger problem is the fact that I can't see anything. I can't see anything. I'm blind because my face is on fire, and the fire is covering my eyes. But it didn't matter that I was blind. It didn't matter that I was standing on something 10 feet tall. I had to jump. I had to take a leap of faith. and just hope that I would make it to the ground. So I did jump. I did make it to the ground. But when I landed on the ground, I couldn't brace myself for the impact of the landing because I couldn't see the ground. So when I landed, I actually broke my leg. And that's how I ended up with this wicked awesome robot leg. Check it out. Yeah. You can get one if you want. No, really, you can. They sell them on Amazon. It's really weird that they sell prosthetic legs on Amazon, let me tell you that. It's like if somebody needs a prosthetic, you can't just go on Amazon and buy one. I mean, you can, but it's not going to do anything for you. It's got to be fitted and all those things. But it is really weird that they sell them on Amazon. But you know what else is really weird? That I was looking on Amazon for a prosthetic leg. And we're not going to talk about that right now. How about that? All right, so now I'm out of the vehicle and I'm off of the vehicle, but I'm on the ground and I'm on fire. And what were we all taught to do if we ever caught on fire? Stop, drop, and roll. That's right. So that's what I did. I learned that when I was 4 or 5 years old. That's what I did. I rolled around on the ground and I tried to put the fire out. And that's when I realized that stop, drop, and roll doesn't work. Like, I think it works if your, like, shirt is a little bit on fire, your pants are on fire. But, I mean, I was engulfed in fuel, so engulfed in flames as well. I couldn't put the fire out that way. And when stop, drop, and roll didn't work, that's when I did something that I regret. The biggest regret of my entire life, because that's when I just gave up. I accepted that I was going to die. I laid on my back and I stared up into the sky and I accepted that the Lord was going to take me in that moment. I gave up. I gave up something extremely important. I gave up something that every single one of us in this room carries around with us every single day of our lives, and really it helps us move forward every day of our lives. I gave up hope in that moment. And hope to me stands for hold on, possibilities exist. But in that hopelessness that I was feeling in that moment, I wasn't holding on for any possibilities that existed, even though I truly didn't know what those possibilities were. Like, would I be a doctor someday? Would I wrestle again someday, play football again someday, or be presenting to people someday? I had no idea what the possibilities were. In the end, it didn't matter what they were because I was giving up on every single one of them. And there's times in all of our lives where we deal with difficult things. I mean, that's a fact. And sometimes those difficult things that we deal with, they can lead to a lack of hope or maybe even that full feeling of hopelessness. And it's not always life and death situations. Like, certainly for me that day in Iraq, it was. But it's also like giving up on things that you've committed yourself to, that you've been doing for a really, really long time, things that you love to do. And then all of a sudden, it's become really hard. And you say to yourself, I don't want to do this anymore because it's too difficult. If you do give up on that thing, you will never see the results that come from getting through it. If you truly do give up on that thing, you will never get to experience the reward that comes from getting through that difficult thing. And I can promise you something right now, the more difficult something is to get through, the bigger the reward is when we get through it. But we got to hold on to see what that reward is. We got to hold on to find out the possibilities that exist for our future. Now, thankfully for me that day in Iraq, I only gave up hope for a second because I ended up rolling in one direction, and I had no idea which direction that was in. It could have been right back to that burning Bradley. But it wasn't. I was actually rolling away from it, and I ended up rolling down a little hill and into a canal that was there. Remember, I gave up. I laid on my back and I stared up into that sky and I gave up. And then I was pushed into that canal. There is no other way for me to look at that. I gave up and I ended up in water that I didn't even know was there, and the water saved my life. That's the day I believed that I was baptized. Falling into that filthy, dirty water in Iraq changed my life forever, but made me new again. It made me whole again. Even though I didn't see it at that point, it was the beginning of that process. Eventually, a couple of my buddies found me in that canal. One of them came down and grabbed my legs. Another one came down and grabbed under my arms. And then they carried me up to the top of the canal, where the helicopters would eventually pick us up. But when I got to the top of the canal is when I could see how bad things really were, because the fire was out on me now, and I could see how bad my hands were burned. I could see how bad my face was burned. I knew it was really, really bad. I knew it was bad enough that I might not live. But if I did live, my life was going to be different. Like, everything was about to change for me. Now, one of my buddies who had pulled me out of that canal, he was standing over top of me, and he was helping me deal with that situation. Because when we deal with really difficult things in our life, we need help. And sometimes we got to ask for that help. Sometimes we just have to accept the help that people are offering us. I believe that God puts people in our way to help us get through difficult things. But it's hard to admit that you need help because you're admitting to people around you that you can't do it on your own. There are many, many things in this world that you cannot do on your own, that we need God for, or we need the people that God puts in our way to help us get through. Don't be afraid to accept that help. I didn't have to ask for it in that moment because my buddy was already there for me. But I did ask him a silly question. I said, "How bad is it?" Now, that's a silly question because I told you I knew how bad it was. I saw my hands and I saw my face. I knew it was really bad. But as a good friend would do in that kind of situation is lie, obviously, because the truth was, "Rick, it's really bad and you might not live." That's not what I needed to hear. So he told me what I needed to hear, and he said, "Rick, it's not that bad." And after he said that to me, I actually looked back at him and I said, "Well, at least I'll never be as ugly as you are." But do you think I really said that? Yes, I did. Come on. This is the Army, for one, and a good buddy of mine. We joked around with each other. He knew I was the funny guy. He knew I had a sense of humor. And I believe that seeing that my sense of humor was still there, even though I was going through something really, really difficult, really, really awful, I believe it gave him some of that hope that I'm talking about. And maybe it was just enough hope to say, you know what, maybe Rick's going to be okay. Maybe Rick's going to make it through this after all. And then eventually the helicopters did come, and they took me and my two buddies who were in the vehicle with me that day away to the hospital. But unfortunately, that helicopter ride, that was the last time that I ever saw or talked to my really good buddy, Sergeant Luis Montez, ever again. Sergeant Montez, he was a soldier who was sitting directly next to me inside of the turret of that Bradley. And he ended up passing away 7 days later. So September 7th, 2006, Sergeant Montez lost his life from the injuries he received that day that we were injured together. Now, when I was in that hospital, he passed away in a hospital in San Antonio, Texas. That's the same hospital that I spent the next 6 months in recovering. And I'm telling you right now, when I was recovering, I felt just as hopeless. There were days that I felt just as hopeless as I did that day in Iraq. Like the first time I saw my face, the first time I saw what I looked like. Recognizing that if I ever got out of that hospital, because at that point I didn't really know, but if I did, I was going to have to go out in public looking like nothing I had ever seen before in my life. And I felt hopeless at that time. But when I was in that hospital, I was surrounded by amazing people, thankfully, like my mom. And my doctors and my nurses and my chaplain is a huge part of my recovery. The physical therapists, occupational therapists, strangers, people I'd never met coming in to just pray for me. These people helped me get through those really difficult times. They saw that I was hopeless, and they gave me that hope that I needed. But my mom was there. And I go back to this picture because really, remember, that's the guy that's got it all figured out. The plan is in place. The plan is in place. 4 years in the military, 1 year of college, state trooper for 20. This guy right here, that's not the plan. It's the same scenario, a picture with my mom. But I didn't know what the future was. I didn't know what the future looked like. I needed help figuring that out. But after all of that, after you hear that entire story, that quick version of what happened to me that day in Iraq, I still tell you that that was the best thing that ever happened to me. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. And we're getting to the reason. We're getting to the reward of why I can say that. And that really brings us to our scripture for today, which is from the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. And when I was picking a day to come to your church to speak, I didn't have very many open days, but this was one of them, and I looked at what the scripture was, and it just fit perfectly. And it says, "And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose." Now I think about that verse and the beginning of that, and we know that all things work together for good. Early on, that picture with me and my mom, I'm not seeing that. What is good in this? I've lost so much. I've lost my hands. I've lost my ears. I've lost my nose. I've lost my beautiful hair. I had some beautiful hair. A little vanity there. But I lost those things. Not one of those things that I lost are a requirement to live. We can live without ears and a nose and hands and a foot and all those things. We can live without those things. One thing we cannot live without is purpose. We cannot live without purpose. We have to have purpose in this world. We have to have a significance. And a lot of the times, I just don't think we're listening the right way. God is talking to us, and he's telling us what our purpose is, and we're just not seeing it sometimes. Sometimes it takes some really big events in your life to see what those purposes are. But I had to find mine again because I was a soldier. I was a leader of men, and it was gone. Now what? Well, I didn't know. But about 3 months after I got out of the hospital, my mom signed me up for this event that I was supposed to go to. And I was terrified to go. I didn't want to go. I was just leaving that hospital area was terrifying to me. A lot of fear. But my mom signed me up, and I knew I should go. So I did go, and I went to this event. It was in Sugar Land, Texas, right outside of Houston. And first thing I do when I get off the bus, this guy comes up to me, and he says, "Hey, man, what do you want to do?" He's the guy that's putting this whole thing on. "What do you want to do?" And I'm thinking to myself, well, I want to recover. That's all. That's where I was in this whole process. I was in a rough spot. I just needed to recover. But that is not what came out of my mouth. What I said to him is, I want to be a public speaker. Rick does not want to be a public speaker at all. Like, I am terrified of public speaking. I took it in high school. I did one speech out of 20 in front of the class, and the one speech that I did was because I could do it with a partner, and it was the instructional version of a public speech, and we made fruit salad. Right in front. That was the only speech I did in the entire class. Now, I ended up with a 94 in the class. Honestly, that's the best grade I've ever gotten in my life. And I didn't even really participate in the class, but my teacher let me do every speech after school in the library with just her. If she fails me, which is the right thing to do, I didn't do the work. I wrote every speech, but I was terrified to give it. I asked her for a 50, but she made me do the speeches after school in the library with just her. And if she failed me, where am I today? Where am I today? I doubt that I'm on this stage right now. But she saw another way around that, and she said, you know what, I'm going to make you work for it, but not the same way everybody else had to do it. And today, I don't know if I'm in the situation if it wasn't for her. But then so I'm at this event. I tell him I want to be a public speaker. No, I don't. But that's what I say. And he says what everybody would say in that kind of situation, like, oh, that's a great idea. Maybe I can help you with that. And I'm like, yeah, that's just what people say. Like, you're not a public speaker, so how could you help me be a public speaker? It's just like the niceties of people. Like, if you say good morning, what does the person say back? Good morning. Like, even if it's not a good morning, you just say that anyway. It'd be terrible if you responded with bad morning, or if he's like, wow, that's a terrible idea being a public speaker. Yeah, you should try something else. But no, he said that. So I leave. A week goes by, and he calls me up. And he says, hey, Rick, I got you a public speaking engagement. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, the one person that actually follows through with what he says he's going to do, I tell him I want to be a public speaker. I could have asked for a bunch of money, and he probably would have found a way to give me that money. But nope, public speaker. I'm terrified. Now I got to prepare. And it's a week away. I don't know what I'm doing. So if you don't know what you're doing in today's world, what do? You Google it, right? So I Google how to be a public speaker. That's the way to become a public speaker. So that's where you start. So I did. Googled. Chronicle.com comes up. Houston Chronicle. And it's like the how-to of everything. All these bullet points. I'm like, this is going to be easy. There's 10 bullet points. I can follow bullet points. That's easy. Number 1 on the list. What do you think it is? Bullet point number 1. Look good. I don't know if I told you. I lost my ears and my nose and my hands. And yeah, look good. That's number 1. If that was number 10, I'd feel a little bit more confident. But nope, that's number 1. Oh, boy. So I go and buy a suit. I'm like, well, I can do that, I guess. I buy a new suit. So I buy a suit. Next on the list is write some notes down. So I write some notes down, some key points that I want to talk about. And I can't hold notes because my hands didn't work at the time at all. I had splints on, so I was like, I'll shove them up my sleeve. And when it comes time, I'll just slide them out and look at my notes. So I get up to this event. It's at a church in Sugar Land. And I get up on the stage, and it's my turn to talk. And I'm sitting there, and I talked for about 10 or 15 minutes. And I seriously forgot that I had notes up my sleeve, and I have no clue what I said. No idea. 10 or 15 minutes. I may have talked about pancakes for 10 minutes. I don't know. What I realized was that moment, it wasn't about the message. It was just about doing something that you're really uncomfortable doing, putting yourself out there. And then I realized that every person in that crowd, no matter what I said, they were listening to what I said. And if people were going to listen, because I do have a story and I have a face that's going to draw people towards me. It's just the way it is. The way I look is going to draw people in my direction. And if people are going to listen to me and I have the audience, then I have to have something worthwhile to talk about, something that will actually help people. And that's where my message of hope came from. But public speaking for me started as something I hated. Then it became something I needed, became something I wanted. Now it's something that I absolutely love. And where did it come from? I believe that came from God. To put him in my life that day, my friend Jim, to put Jim in front of me that day and say, you know what? What do you want to do? What didn't he say? He did not say, hey, Rick, this is what you should do. He asked me what I wanted to do. I said I wanted to be a public speaker, and he helped me grow that. Listen to God. Listen to what he wants for you. And then other people can join in and help you grow what that is. But I don't think it's up to anyone else to tell you what your purpose is. That's God's job. That's what he will tell you. And I found my purpose through that. His purpose for me through that. What is your purpose in this world? What is your purpose today? What is your purpose tomorrow? What is your purpose for the rest of this week? They can change, they can move, but the lifelong purpose for me is this, a message that I can share, hope that I can hopefully reach people with. But in the end, it's his purpose. And then there's that part of the verse, and we know that all things work together for good. And here is the good. Here is my reward. For all of the difficult things that I've dealt with, here is my reward. I've been able to speak to 2 million students over the past 17 years of my life. That does not happen if I don't get blown up in Iraq 18 years ago. That does not happen if God doesn't speak to me with a purpose, which he's speaking to all of us, but really it's not if I didn't listen to God with that purpose. 2 million students I've been able to talk to over the past 17 years. The biggest one of them all, my wife, Amy. When I woke up in the hospital and I saw my face for the first time, I told you quickly about that. The scariest thing in my life was there, and that was the fact that I was going to be alone the rest of my life. That's a scary thing, loneliness, living without human connection, but even bigger than that, living without a connection to God. But I never thought this would happen. Never in my life. HOPE, though, I just told you, it stands for hold on, possibilities exist. It's real. It's real. And when you hold on and you have faith, I was able to meet my beautiful wife, Amy. And it would not have happened if I didn't get injured in Iraq 18 years ago. My family. My 2 girls. My daughter, Tenley, 13. My daughter, Grace, 5. Those 3 are the most important people in my life. And they would not be in my life today if I did not get blown up 18 years ago. If I did not find my purpose in life, they wouldn't be in my life. They were placed in my life. Amazing. Now, life is good. Life is good. But is life easy? No, life isn't easy. Life is difficult at times, but it's always good. I look at it that way. I know what God created, and I look outside, and it is beautiful, and it is always beautiful. So even when I'm dealing with really difficult things in my life, I know he is there, and I know life is good. My daughter, Tenley, 13 years old. Some of you I know have been praying for her. And the reason you have been praying for her is she has been struggling with some mental health stuff, and she's struggling with an eating disorder. And it's just a really rough time for her. But then I give today's message about purpose and about hardships and about difficulties in our lives. And I struggle with it. I'm like, oh my gosh, is she going to be okay? In the end, I know she's going to be okay. I know this is a part of her journey. And this journey that being whole again is a process. And it's not always easy. It's not always pretty. But it makes us stronger. It makes us better. And I know that Tenley is going to be better because of all of this. And I just want to say thank you for your prayers for Tenley.
Then my little girl, Grace, my little 5-year-old ball of fire. Oh, yeah, she's a ball of fire. I took her to Chuck E. Cheese not long ago, and I think I'd rather go back to Iraq. Yeah. Chuck E. Cheese is like a war zone for 5-year-olds. Brutal. Brutal. But I put that picture in there just because I look good, and that's the only reason for that one. But Grace, my 5-year-old little girl, because of my injury and because of all the medication that I was on, some kind of chemical imbalance now, I cannot have children. Talk about a hardship. Talk about something difficult in my life to hear that one really quickly. But who is not in my life today if I could? Grace, my daughter, who I fostered from 10 days old and then adopted at 2.5 years old. It is crazy to me to think that if I could have had children, she would not be in my life today. That is crazy. I can't even imagine my life without her. But she wouldn't be there if I could have. This isn't how I drew things out at all. This is not the plan that I had in place because it's not my plan. It's his plan for us. It was his plan for her to be with my wife and I and my daughter Tenley. That was his plan. We need to listen. We need to open our eyes. It's around us every day. If we're wondering what our purpose is in life, it's there. You're just not looking at it correctly. Open your eyes. Open your ears. Talk to other people that maybe have a strong faith that can lead you. But this would not be in my life today if all of these things didn't happen. So how can I look back at that day in Iraq and say that was the worst thing that ever happened to me? I certainly can. But why would I do that when I realize all of the rewards, all of the good that has come out of it? You all can have that same good and all those same rewards if you see it the same way. I just want to say thank you all so much for this opportunity to be with here today. It's truly an honor. And again, this is where I'm supposed to be right here, right now. Thank you all very much.